More, we can cross now live to Geneva and speak to Taoufik Shamar, the Secretary General of the Union of Medical Care and Relief Organisations. Thank you very much for being with us here on France 24 this Friday morning. Now, as well as more civilian casualties in eastern Ghouta, medical facilities are also under increasing attack. Talk us through the extent of damage caused to the many hospitals and ambulances in this bombing campaign by the Syrian regime.
Actually, it's one of the most savage campaigns against civilians in the history of Syrian conflict. We are witnessing many folds the ravage that happened in Aleppo, reminding that we have 400,000 persons here. Most of them are civilians. In Aleppo, we had only 60 to 70,000, which means that the humanitarian catastrophe which is pending is of larger scale. And it's a real threat for our future, the future of humanitarian work, since if these red lines are crossed, it means that we are normalizing horror.
But what help, if any, have people on the ground there received so far?
No help, nothing crossing fire lines, nothing is arriving since months and months. The last convoy that arrived to the 7,000 people only, that was 2 weeks ago from the United Nations. Saying 7,000 means nothing for the 400,000 people. We don't have medication, we don't have nutrition, we don't have any support for all their needs, and they are really dying of not only starvation but also with bombs.
Now, this is a situation that could get worse in the coming days. Reports have been circulating that the regime in Damascus could now soon begin a ground offensive as well as those airstrikes. What are your particular fears about that move for the civilian population in these neighbourhoods of eastern Ghouta?
Actually, if this war doesn't stop, it means a real catastrophe, a real humanitarian catastrophe. If this war doesn't give the real needs for humanitarian corridors in the 48 hours, and they are threatening with total war on the ground too, it means that the humanitarian crisis will happen for sure, and it will concern thousands and thousands of civilians. This will be a real shame for humanity in the 21st century, assisting powerless in front of a real middle-aged war.
Now, Mr. Shamar, what is your message to the international community ahead of this UN Security Council vote a little later in New York this Friday on a proposed 30-day ceasefire? What's your message to the international community, to diplomats?
I would address directly Russian authorities. Please don't consider this situation different than the situation of Stalingrad when it was besieged. Civilians are the same humans that have been suffering during that days. We are humans. Syrians, women and children are dying under bombs. You must reconsider your decision and open humanitarian corridor and stop this war. You must be considering history for the future and not to be considered differently than what had happened in the Second World War.
Taoufik Shamar in Geneva, that's all we have time for. Thank you very much for being with us here on France 24.